Now that we've seen how attackers use war dialers to find modems in your network, let's turn our attention to your IP network, that is your Internet Protocol network. Attackers will go after this network in a variety of ways. One of the most fundamental ways they'll go after your network is to develop a network map. And they'll use a tool called KEOPS-NG or some similar tool to define your network topology. The attackers want to figure out how your network is connected together. They want to determine where your servers are, where your routers are, where your desktop systems are, and to get an overall view of your topology. They want to know which addresses have live machines and develop a map, a diagram of their target. Essentially, a map of the target gives an attacker the lay of the land. They know what systems are valid and what they can go after. Now, an attacker can manually go through and develop this topology by hand using tools like Ping. Ping sends an Internet Control Message Protocol echo request. That is ICMP echo request, and it waits for a response. Is there a valid host at this target address? The attacker can type in ping for all of your potential addresses. They can also use traceroute, which is a Unix program, or traceRT, which is a Windows program, to determine how your systems are connected together through various routers. What traceroute does is it sends a series of packets with short time-to-live values to determine how the systems are put together. Based on the responses gotten from the systems, the attacker can determine how your network topology is organized. Sure, an attacker can do all of that by hand, but they will use automated tools to make the job even easier. In particular, a lot of attackers can use KEOPS-NG. It's one of the best automated network mappers available. You can use this as a legitimate system administrator to help manage your network, but attackers sometimes use it to help attack your network. It was written by Brent Priddy, and you can find it at the KEOPS-NG website at keopsng.sourceforge.net. What KEOPS does is it automatically discovers network hosts and it traces your network, giving you pretty pictures of your environment. It also includes tools that can help you manage your environment. So in this way, it can be either used to attack your systems or to support management of your environment. To install and configure KEOPS-NG, you need to use your Linux system. KEOPS only works on Linux. You can install the package by changing directory into your Home Tools directory. Then you need to untar the KEOPS-NG file. Change into the KEOPS directory and run the configure script. Then use gmake to actually compile the program and gmake install to install it on your system. KEOPS-NG actually consists of two parts. The first part is the KEOPS agent. This is like the server. It's the thing that actually scans the network trying to create the map. The second part is the graphical user interface, the GUI. This is where the user enters in information and controls the agent. So after entering a network address that you want mapped, the tool conducts an automated ping sweep. It sends out those ICMP echo request packets to every possible address in the network range. For those systems where a response is recorded, the system is drawn on the screen so that you have a visible map of your network. In this way, it generates an inventory of potential targets on the network. Now, this tool is very noisy, so an attacker that's interested in doing a stealthy scan won't use KEOPS-NG. But an attacker that throws caution to the wind and doesn't think you're looking out for him will use a tool like this to automatically discover your network. Beyond just determining the hosts and the addresses that are valid on your network, KEOPS can also determine the routes to each of your hosts. KEOPS-NG includes a built-in tool that will trace route to each valid address. This trace route shows the router hops to the target, and essentially it acts like a fancy front-end interface for the traceroute command. Then KEOPS-NG automatically goes through all of its results from the ping sweep and the traceroute to determine how your network is put together. It then displays a picture of the target network that the attacker can use to focus the attack on particular machines. KEOPS-NG also includes some useful capabilities for port scanning. We'll talk more about port scanning later. And it also has some built-in management tools like Telnet, FTP, and Secure Shell so that you can make connections to each of your systems and either attack them or manage them. Let's now take a look at using KeyOpsNG to see how an attacker can create a map of a target network. The first thing we need to do is run the KeyOps agent. We run it in the background by putting an ampersand after it. It tells us that it's starting the agent on our local host, 127.0.0.1. We then run the KeyOps client and tell it where to connect to the agent. As we know, the agent is on our local host, 127.0.0.1. Then we go to View Space to add a network that we would like to map. We enter in the network address. As you recall, when we configured our systems, our network address was 10.1.1.0. We then have to tell it the net mask so that we define the bounds of what we're going to scan, which will be 255, 255, 255.0. The tool automatically does a ping sweep of our network. It then asks us to associate a picture with the systems that it found. We will just accept the defaults for it. We now have the ability to drag around the systems that were discovered on our network. Our simple network really consists of just 2 machines. However, on a complex corporate network, we'd see many different systems. We can type in notes for each individual machine by right-clicking on it. For example, 10.1.1.20 is our Windows XP box. We can also go through and get more detailed information about this system, including the various services that are running on the machine and the ports that are associated with those services. We see on this system ports 135 and 139 are open. That's a telltale sign of a Windows machine. So we have a lot of different information about 10.1.1.20. We can in fact connect to that system using a variety of tools built into KeyOps. On 10.1.1.10, we have our Linux machine. And we can make a connection such as a Telnet connection to that system to manage it remotely. So we have a picture of our complete network topology and can make connections to each of those systems. To leave the tool, we simply select Quit. We can save our configuration for a later analysis. I encourage you to use KeyOpsNG yourself to explore your network and interact with the systems that are discovered during the automated ping sweep. Now that we've seen how an attacker creates a network map using a tool like KeyOps, let's talk about how you can defend yourself against this type of attack. One of the most fundamental things you can do to prevent this type of attack is to use firewalls to limit traffic types based on your individual business needs. Firewalls are like network traffic cops. They allow certain kinds of traffic to flow, and they block other kinds of traffic. You should limit your traffic so that only those packets with a defined business need are allowed into your network. For example, you might want to block incoming ICMP packets to systems that shouldn't be pingable. Certainly you don't want somebody mapping your entire internal network, so use an external firewall to block incoming ICMP packets coming into your internal protected network. You may also want to configure the firewall to block pings coming in for your DNS server, your mail server, and maybe even your web server. Now, if you block things coming into your web server, users will not be able to ping it. However, in most cases, users don't really have a defined need for pinging a web server. Now, some internet service providers do need to be able to ping at least one machine on your network. They send a heartbeat signal to you to make sure that your system is still alive, and if it goes off the network, they'll start troubleshooting the network link. You can configure your firewall, though, so that packets are allowed in from the internet service provider's network management systems. Let them ping your external router so that they can make sure you're alive. But that doesn't mean that they can do a full ping sweep of your internal network. So by carefully configuring your firewall, you can do a lot to prevent somebody from mapping your internal network.